Welcome to miniOrange. miniOrange provides single sign-on solutions for Fisheye, and as we know, that is the best SAML SSO solution available in the market. So in this video, we are going to set up Fisheye Single Sign-On with Custom Identity Provider using SAML protocol. Let's get started with the setup. Go to your miniOrange Single Sign-On plugin. Click on Add New IDP. You can select Manual Setup Flow, which gives you access to all the various setup options that we provide to add a SAML identity provider. Here you will require some IDP details, like IDP name, IDP entity ID, the IDP single sign-on URL, and the IDP signing certificate, which will be used to validate a SAML response received from your identity provider. You will find these details in your IDP metadata file. To import the IDP metadata details using metadata URL, or by uploading the metadata file, you can go to Import from Metadata tab. To get the service provider information, click on SP Information button. To configure SP or Fisheye's metadata in your identity provider, you can either use metadata URL or metadata XML file, or by manually configuring using these URLs. You can go to View Setup Guide to get the step-by-step instruction. If you want to configure your IDP setup from the get-go, you can use Quick Setup Flow, which we will be covering in this video. So for the quick setup, go back to Common Settings. Click on Add New IDP and select Quick Setup. Select Custom IDP. Now you are on the service provider metadata. You can configure service provider metadata by either of the three ways, that is metadata URL or metadata XML file, or by manually configuring the metadata on your IDP. Click here to view the setup guide of the plugin. Here you'll get step-by-step instructions, so let's configure Custom Identity Provider. Here, we will take an example of miniOrange IDP as our custom IDP. In the App section, we are creating Fisheye SAML application. In miniOrange IDP we can configure service provider metadata by manually configuring SP information, or rather you can go to Import SP metadata. Here we will go with manual configuration as mentioned earlier. You will find SP entity ID and a CS URL in the plugin. Copy the SP entity ID, and paste it in the given field in the application. Now copy a CS URL and paste it in the given field in the application. Click on Save. Your app is configured successfully. Now let's set up Fisheye as service provider. Go to Service Provider Metadata window in the plugin, and click on Proceed. Enter the custom IDP name of your choice. IDP metadata can be imported in one of the three ways: metadata URL, metadata file, or manual setup. We will be going with metadata URL for now. You will get the IDP metadata from your identity provider. In the miniOrange IDP you will find the metadata in the Apps tab. Select your app and choose metadata from the drop-down. You will get the IDP metadata information by clicking on Show Metadata Details button. Here we will copying metadata URL. Now paste that copied URL in the metadata URL field, and click on Save. You can see SAML settings saved message. Go down to the Test and Get Attributes URL. Copy the URL. Go to the incognito window and in the location bar paste the copy URL from the plugin and press Enter. You can see successful test configuration here, along with the name ID. Go back to the plugin and click on Proceed. In the User Profiles section you can map the user profile attributes. Click on Save and Proceed. From this drop-down, configure the default group that will be used to grant application access to user. If no group is mapped, then users are added by default to the Fisheye users group, and from this drop-down, you can choose which user would be assigned the default groups. Click on Save and Proceed. Now click on Finish Quick Setup. Your IDP is successfully configured. You will find all the configured IDPs. Here you can view, test, edit or delete your configuration. Here you can also enable or disable SSO for Fisheye instance. As your test configuration was successful, now you will see the SSO button on the Fisheye login page. click on Use Copyright Login button, and you will be redirected to your custom IDP for SAML authentication. Now enter your IDP credentials. You will be successfully logged into your Fisheye dashboard using your custom IDP credentials. Go to the user profile to check the user data, and you can find the user email ID here. miniOrange provides best single sign-on solutions. Thanks for watching.